Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of the Wiccan Conservative. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm still here. Everything's going good. As far as the kids go, we got legal representation. They are not going to school any longer, so we are working through the issue as we speak. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for expressing your sympathies, and hopefully you're taking a closer look at what's going on in your own local schools, so that this doesn't happen to you. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the best time in politics, as far as I'm concerned, to be talking politics in the past 2 years, and that is life after the Mueller report. If you listen to any type of mainstream media or any, second stream media even, the narrative is still going on. The Democrats are still reaching desperately for some type of collusion or obstruction or just anything really that they can grasp at to say, oh no, this is Mueller's dog whistle to Congress, that they want them to go further into the report. And I didn't sit down and read verbatim every single word in the report. What I did was kind of go through most of it, the bulk of it. I read the first couple pages indefinitely. And a couple things jumped out at me. Within the first 2 pages of the report, it kind of double speaks itself to death, in my opinion. It comes out and says, okay, well, we did find, that Russia interfered with our election, but the way that they interfered wasn't really any different than the way a candidate campaigns. They said that collusion wasn't a real crime. That was a narrative that the mainstream media was running with since the beginning. So again, they went in and explained that collusion is not a crime and that it's actually conspiracy. And here's, the basis for our findings and what we went off based on a real crime code. And a lot of things that were put in there as to how they got their messages and how they got their communications. It kind of really struck me funny that, to tell you the truth, the Democrats were crying about full transparency with the Mueller report, and they wanted to know everything that was going to go in it, and they even want the little black bars taken off of. There's quite a few sections that have the redacted areas, but I think anybody that's been paying attention to this can put 2 and 2 together and has a pretty good idea already of who and what is under those black bars. And then, the media did play it so close to what the actual report said that I got to myself questioning, how did they have all this information? I don't remember Mueller coming out and giving updates, and I don't, really remember him coming public and saying, I have this, I have that, and kind of easing the public through this process. But somehow the mainstream media got a hold of almost every incident that was in the Mueller report prior to and as it was breaking. Now, things like indictments and certain key elements, you could probably, see that information would get out into the public. But I'm really curious as to know how the mainstream media had a pulse on that entire investigation the entire time. And still to this day, you want redactions brought to light, and you want this and you want that. And nowhere in the entire report did you link Donald Trump to anything himself. And if you read the report, and I listened to Dan Bongino as well. So it was easier, I think, for me, once I had my suspicions confirmed by his podcast on the radio, was to go in and read the report and look at how many times that, actually Russia did reach out and did want to give dirt on Hillary and did want to, kind of get the campaign people involved and pull them into their WikiLeaks drama. And multiple times Don Trump Jr. made it public. He posted things on Twitter. He responded publicly on Twitter. Guys, if he was trying to be secret and carry out some sort of espionage and double agent spy stuff, he was a really bad spy. He was really not very good at keeping things under wrap, and he really wasn't good at keeping things secret. So the fact that you're telling me that Russia interfered in our elections, I was expecting to see more hardcore evidence. Okay, they hacked this server on election day and they put in X amount of blank ballots for Donald Trump, or they went in and reversed different election ballots that were already cast. These were the types of things that I was hoping that, if they had something so solid to go on, that would be the things that they released. And no, it seemed like it was a lot of he said and she said, and this person tried to grab that person, and yada, yada, yada. And it goes kind of swirling into a circle. The next question that I asked going down through the report is, we keep going back to this DNC server and the WikiLeaks hacks and the information that they had. Listen, I understand that there are certain secret documents that need to be protected for national security. That is something that I completely understand and I can get behind. But when there is secret communications between a former Secretary of State and a current presidential candidate and former First Lady, when there's secret documentation of her talking to different world leaders, being in different positions, kind of doing backdoor deals, and this stuff comes to light. We already know that she had a server in her own private home that she was taking care of. We already know that now, she had information that was damaging to herself on there. There's a little bit of difference between going into somebody's high school yearbook and finding out that they, passed out drunk at a party 20 some odd years ago, as opposed to finding out that less than 4 years ago, less than 6 years ago, a woman that was a former First Lady, former Secretary of the State, is having communications with people in the Middle East and having shady deals going off onto the side, and using her position to manipulate the cards. I want to know why we're not asking more questions. I know that Judicial Watch is on this. Tom Fitton has been on a man on a mission, and I really admire and respect that, because he's kind of being pulled in all different kinds of places. But James Comey admitted that, there was information on these servers and it could potentially be hazardous to our national security, and it was just swiped over. And instead of putting the blame on the person that had access to this and whose servers were hacked, it was her information. We're going to go turn it around on Donald Trump because he was her political adversary. Listen, the woman has been in politics for a lot longer than Trump has. If anybody's made any enemies over the years, I would go out on a limb to say that it would be the Clintons, and I can't help but to ask again, why can we not just be honest and say that, what, it's her information. At the end of the day, it was her responsibility to protect it and to keep her image and to keep her name safe. So for it to get out at any point, it doesn't really matter who did it. Why did you do the things that people would look down on? First off, that it would look bad if it was ever released into the public. And then second, why didn't you protect it the way that it should have been protected? And, as far as Russia interfering, the big reveal on the Russia interference is this social media networking. They supposedly created a social media outlet and helped booster Trump's turnout for his rallies. And I think it said something along the lines of, and this is part of the doublespeak, something along the lines of, the Russians interfered socially with the social media and built up all the rallies and la la la, but yet not a single American was charged with this collusion or, kind of whatever you want to call the cooperation between American citizens and a foreign government to elect a presidential candidate. How can you make a claim that is in fact, the claim that Mueller said that's how they interfered with our election, but you didn't indict or arrest anybody for actually interfering with the election? You can go online and you can make this is the problem that I'm having a hard time understanding, is what is the problem for campaigning? It's the same thing. So if I, as a, third party, somebody who just wanted to help bolster the campaign, and I wanted to go out and stand in the streets and hand out Trump signs or hand out Trump pins and go door to door and say, vote for Trump, and this is why I'm voting for him, and you should vote for him too. Is that interference? Is that, I'm not standing outside a polling location. I'm not holding a gun to somebody's head in the polls. So how can you sit here and accuse the American people? Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of us out there that are following mainstream media like this. But how can you accuse the American people of being so stupid that we were brainwashed into voting for Donald Trump? And literally, that's what I think that the Mueller report came out and said to the American people. You're stupid because, Russia went on a Trump campaign and you guys fell into it. And that's how they interfered with our election, because you guys voted for somebody that the Russians liked. They had a good relationship with the man. Have you ever had something like that happen to you where, I don't know whether you're in high school or you're in, your job, and somebody is really, really bad at their job. They just suck all over, and you just, that they're that guy at work, but they like you. They like you a lot. And for whatever reason, they're stuck to your side. They come in the morning, hey, how you doing? Da, 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 da. And you're like, man, I really like this person, but I hate the way he does his job. I hate the way he does his job. So when it comes down to cannon the guy, you got to be like, man, I like you, but honestly, you got to go because you can't do your job. That's what I feel like Trump was stuck in that situation with Russia. Russia's that guy. We don't really like the way they do their job. We could do without them. We would fire them if we could, but they really liked Trump. That I can't argue with them. If that is then what interference is, what electoral interference is, so be it, because I'm not getting that one. But anyways, moving on. And speaking of the collusion and going across seas and la 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 la, has anybody else heard about Obama's chief of staff being indicted? I remember seeing something briefly pass over the news about 2 weeks ago. I didn't get into hunting it down and finding out any information, but I figured I would pose the question. I thought that was kind of interesting now that the Mueller report is out and we know where the dossier came from and we know where the leaks came from. I think it's time to start, going back onto the offensive and trying to figure out who really is the security breach and why we got there. And I've got a pretty good idea that, we'll find Obama at the top of the pinnacle, very close to the top. It's either, I kind of go back and forth between him and Hillary. But I think that Obama was supposed to be the face and Hillary was supposed to be the muscle. And Obama is kind of really, he's living up to that name. He's really been kind of quiet in the media. The media's not really been disclosing where he's at or where he's been going and doing. But just in case you didn't know, he's been on kind of like a little world tour. if you will, and he's been preaching his globalist message from sea to shining sea. Anybody that will listen to him talk, he's been down there and kind of talking about it. And you really wouldn't have known it other than the Easter worshiper comments that were going around after the Sri Lankan massacres and terrorist attacks and all that jazz. But he kind of popped back into the spotlight here, and I thought that it would be, worth mentioning that you should go back and see, all the places that he went and everything that he's been doing since he left office. The speech that he made with Prince Henry over in Great Britain wasn't it wasn't my favorite cup of tea, and there was a couple things in there that really kind of struck me as, oh goodness gracious, he's out here doing the USA World Apology Tour and preaching globalization all in the same breath. So the man's on a mission, and you need to go pay attention to what he's been doing and maybe try to find a little bit of correlation with the global strife that's going on. I haven't had the chance to narrow down a timeline, but that's something that I do want to do for a video in the near future, is try to see, if there's any type of connection with what he's been preaching and where he's been going. Again, getting a piece of information is just a stepping stone to knowledge. You still need to seek the deeper truth. And sometimes even whenever you get to researching things, you're going to find out there's a little bit more, and question everything. Even if you read it in a really trusted source or whatever, ask yourself why would this be happening, and how does this relate to other things that are going on in the news? With the Mueller report coming out, and then Obama doing his globalization apology tour, and now all of a sudden we've picked up Julian Assange. So it's just a little funky to me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I notice patterns and things that lay well together. So I feel like all of this kind of wraps in to one big master plan, if you will. Has anybody read the Julian Assange links? When they picked him up in London, he released a whole mess of files, and I thought they were kind of interesting. Personally, I went through and opened up, I got into Hillary's emails. Of course, that was the first point of concern for me, and just kind of, going back and forth through her things. Then they have, there's some murder cases in there. There's handbooks for our military, how they do their handling procedures. There's different land property from overseas, like land property agreements and conversations between world leaders and, all different kinds of stuff. But it's curious to me because, like I said, with the patterns, I don't know what any of these links mean. I don't know what they really are attached to. Their older files and their newer files, there's really doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to the way that he did this, but it's just kind of curious because I don't know how sensitive this material is. I'm not, 100% up on, how much the military lets out about their procedures, how they handle things, who's in charge of things, what type of, I know the Freedom of Information Act, you could pretty much get whatever you need these days. But with that being said, I'm not exactly sure what the significance of the first leaked documents are. I think it's awful funny that, after 7 years of amnesty that they are going to just, ship him over to his enemies now. And it seemed to have a pretty coinky-dink type ending when, the Mueller report comes out, and then they hand over Julian Assange, and you have to assume that he's the one that, leaked Hillary's documents and whatnot. So I don't think that the man should be in trouble personally, because everybody should be responsible for their own things. If she was handling her business properly, I don't think that he would have been able to hack her as bad as she was. And that's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. That could be highly, secured, confidential documentation that's in extremely hard to get to servers. I'm not 100% sure, but he definitely brought some things to light that the American people weren't otherwise going to know about. And I'm still kind of going through those files too. And if I find anything interesting, I'll touch base with you. If you guys know anything interesting, feel free to drop it in the comments. And the last story that I wanted to touch on today would be the fire at Notre Dame. It's strange to me. I heard about Notre Dame, I guess, about an hour or two after the fire had started burning. I don't think that it burned all that long or all that fast, so I don't think that it was something that we could look at and say that this was intentionally done 110,000%. I'm 100% sure of it. But it was strange to me that immediately, like as soon as the building started burning, the mainstream media came out and debunked almost everything. I mean, they're working on it, and it was an electrical fire, and it was just an accident. The structure is literally still on fire. I'm not in, fire brigade. I don't work for the fire department. I don't know a whole lot about, the job that a fire marshal does, but I know that typically you don't get results on cause and full extent of damage and things like that until after the structure is completely finished burning and investigated. These types of information, this type of information was coming out as the cathedral was burning. How do you know that these things are true? You don't really know. You can speculate, and you could say it doesn't appear to be intentional. It doesn't appear to be a motivated crime. It doesn't appear this way or that way. But I don't remember hearing any of that. I remember hearing a lot of, backlash for people that were, drawing conclusions to the fact that other churches in the area were terroristically targeted, and now all of a sudden Notre Dame is burning. I heard people complaining that, they were upset that Muslims were cheering the burning of the cathedral. I did not hear anybody say it could be or it would be. I heard very distinct facts and it's not this, it's that. It's not this, it's this. Well, how do you know this until a complete investigation is done? This is what we are talking about when we say fake news, when we say that you're not being, you're not being honest with your reporting. You have no integrity because you are not even just bringing the facts to the people. The facts. The cathedral was on fire. There was nobody inside. They were working on it. Artifacts were removed. Those are facts. Saying that it wasn't a Muslim terrorist that did it. Saying that, it was, it was an accident. You don't know any of those facts until after the fire is put out, until after the fire marshal can come in and take a look at the damage and see where it started and build a case to what happened. So, I don't know. To me, it's a little bit fishy. Then you go back into the fact that the diocese were fighting with the government over who was going to renovate the structure. So there was, a petition for money, and there was a group of people that didn't want the cathedral renovated at all. And now all of a sudden there's a big fire and a big outpouring of support and donations sent out, and they want to rebuild, and again, that's great, but the timing is really suspicious. Again, they were already working on the structure, so most of the highly valued artifacts were already removed. So again, these are the things that come up in questions that are being shut down as the incident is taking place. You should be questioning what's happening. As something's going on, you should have more questions than you have answers until after the fact. And at that point, you just have to be really careful with what you say and how you say it. You cannot come out and report something as fact, and it's not. So, when we say fake news, when we say, that you're going around just spreading false information, those are the things that we're talking about. And honestly, our generation is just, it's turning the world on its side, not in a good way. Generation X had this complete idea that we were going to change the world for the better, and we wanted to make it more inclusive, and we had this big, bright, grand idea as to how we were going to eliminate all the strife and all the divide, and just live in harmony. Like, I know that sounds cliche, but now you see that we're in power, and what are we doing? We're the generation that killed Notre Dame. We're the generation that's potentially going to ruin the United States. We're the generation that, can't take a joke. We're the generation that is so sensitive. We have to run and hide because we can't express our ideas calmly amongst ourselves. We can't, we're bringing back segregation. We're bringing back just complete, utter craziness, and I don't think that's what our generation wanted. I really don't. I don't think this was our mission, and if we don't pay attention, we're going to go down in history as the most notable, infamous generation in the history of time, that we would see so much change occur in our lifetime, and not do something productive with it, not do something great with it. But here we are, and this is the world that we live in. So hopefully we just keep passing information back and forth to each other, and do the best that we can to save our country, and keep our values still relevant in this crazy society that we live in. And that's all I got for you guys today. It's been a long time. Glad to be back, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.